I know what you're thinking, she whispered, her smile calm, but her eyes said she already knew everything I was trying to hide. The day starts like any other. The kind of normal that doesn't warn you it's about to change. I walk into my friend's house like I always do, same gate, same hallway, same faint smell of tea drifting from the kitchen. Everything feels familiar in a way that should be comforting. But today, something is slightly off. Not in the house, in me. His mom is there. She's in the kitchen, moving calmly like she owns every second of the space around her. There's nothing dramatic about her presence, and maybe that's what makes it harder to ignore. She doesn't try to be noticed. She simply is. When she turns, she sees me. And she smiles. Not the usual polite smile adults give guests. Not a quick acknowledgement. This one lasts a fraction longer. Just enough to make me feel like I've been paused in place. Her eyes don't rush away. They stay. It's strange how a look can feel like a question without a single word being spoken. I try to act normal, whatever normal means in that moment, but I suddenly become aware of everything. My hands. My posture. The way I'm standing too close to the counter instead of moving away like I should. She breaks the silence first. I know what you're thinking, her voice is soft, almost casual, like she's commenting on the weather. But the words don't belong to something casual. They land differently. Heavier. Sharper. Like they were meant for me alone, even if no one else is in the room. I feel my throat tighten slightly. Not fear exactly, more like exposure. That uncomfortable feeling when you're not sure what part of you has been seen, but you know something has. I want to laugh it off. I almost do. But she doesn't move. Doesn't explain. Doesn't soften it. Instead, she just tilts her head slightly, still holding that same calm smile. The kind that doesn't ask for permission to stay in your thoughts. The kitchen suddenly feels quieter, even though nothing has changed. The sound of the kettle, the distant movement of the house, it all fades into the background like it's not important anymore. Only her voice stays. Only her attention stays. And the worst part is, I can't tell if she's guessing, or if she already knows. I look away for a second too long. When I look back, she's still watching me, but now her smile feels different. Not bigger. Not smaller. Just, aware. Like she's stepped one thought ahead of me and is waiting to see if I'll catch up. She turns slightly back toward the counter, as if the moment didn't matter at all. But it already does. Because something has shifted. And I don't know when it started, but I can feel it now. The normal I walked into a few minutes ago doesn't feel normal anymore. And she's acting like she's been waiting for that change all along. After that moment in the kitchen, nothing actually changes in the house, but everything changes in me. That's the strange part. Life continues like it always does, small household noises, footsteps in the hallway, the distant sound of a TV playing something no one is really watching. But inside my head, there's a delay now. Like reality is slightly out of sync. Her words keep repeating. I know what you're thinking, not loudly. Not aggressively. Just, calmly. Like she didn't mean to disturb anything, but did it anyway. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. A casual sentence. A harmless comment. Something I misunderstood because I overthink too much. But then I remember her smile. That steady, knowing smile that didn't rush to explain itself. So now I start doing something I didn't do before. I start managing myself. How I stand in the room. How long I stay in one place. Where I look when she enters. It's no longer natural. Everything becomes slightly calculated, like I'm trying not to trigger something I don't fully understand. And the worst part is, she notices. Not directly. Not in a way that exposes me immediately. It's subtle. Later that day, she comes into the living room holding a glass of tea. The steam rises gently, curling between us like something alive but quiet. She doesn't announce herself. She never does. She just places the cup in front of me. Her fingers lightly brush the edge of the table as she leans forward for a moment, just enough for the space between us to feel smaller than it should. Not inappropriate. Not crossing any line. But enough to make me aware of it. Her presence has weight. Not physical pressure, but attention. The kind that makes you feel like you're being read without pages. Relax, she says softly. It sounds simple. One word. Calm tone. No expectation. But it doesn't relax me. Because it feels like she's saying it for a reason I don't fully understand yet. I nod too quickly. A mistake. I realize it instantly. Her eyes flicker to my reaction, not in judgment, but in recognition. Like she's noting something only she can see clearly. For a second, she doesn't speak. Just studies the silence between us as if it contains more information than my words ever could. Then she straightens slightly, adjusting her posture with quiet ease. And just like that, she returns to normal conversation. As if nothing happened. As if I didn't just internally stumble over a sentence that was never spoken out loud. But I don't return with her. Because now I'm aware of her differently. Not as just my friend's mother in the background of visits, but as someone who registers things I don't say. Someone who notices pauses. Someone who understands silence in a way that feels a little too precise. And that awareness doesn't fade when she leaves the room. It stays behind, sitting with me in the space she was just occupying. Like an afterimage burned into the moment. And the more I try to ignore it, the clearer it becomes. She isn't guessing anymore. She's observing. Days don't change in obvious ways after that. Nothing dramatic happens. No confrontation. No confession. No clear line drawn in the sand. But something shifts anyway, quietly, persistently, like a thought you can't finish but also can't stop having. Every visit to my friend's house starts to feel different now. Not because the place has changed, but because I have. I notice details I used to ignore. The way footsteps sound in the hallway. The timing of voices in different rooms. And most of all, her presence. She doesn't do anything unusual. That's what makes it worse. She's still calm. Still composed. Still moving through her home like she belongs to it completely. But now, I catch patterns where I didn't before. She appears more often in the same spaces I'm in. Not in a way that feels forced. Never direct. Never obvious enough to question out loud. It's always natural on the surface. She comes into the living room while I'm sitting there. She walks through the hallway just as I step out of a room. She asks small, meaningless questions, simple things like whether I've eaten, or if I want something to drink. But those questions don't feel like the point anymore. It feels like she is. One afternoon, I'm sitting on the couch scrolling through my phone, trying to look occupied. The house is quiet in that comfortable way it gets when no one is actively speaking. Then I hear footsteps. Soft. Unhurried. She enters the room and pauses just long enough to register my presence before sitting down, not across from me, not far away, but beside me. Not too close, but close enough that I immediately become aware of the space between us. The couch dips slightly as she sits. That small physical shift makes everything feel more real than it should. She doesn't say anything at first. Neither do I. The silence stretches, not awkward, but charged in a way I don't have language for. It's not empty silence. It's filled silence. Like something is being held carefully in place so it doesn't spill. Then she speaks, her voice light but precise. You're trying very hard not to look at me. It's not a question. It's an observation. My throat tightens slightly, but I keep my eyes forward, pretending her words didn't land the way they did. A pause follows. Long enough for me to realize she's not in a hurry to move away from the moment. Then I make the mistake. I glance at her. Just briefly. But it's enough. Because she was already looking at me. Her expression isn't playful anymore. It isn't teasing or casual. It's something quieter. More intentional. Like she's been waiting for that exact second of eye contact. And for the first time, I realize something uncomfortable. She isn't randomly appearing in these moments. She's choosing them. Not forcing anything. Not rushing anything. Just staying close enough for me to notice her, and then noticing exactly how I respond. I look away again, but it's too late. The awareness has already settled between us. And now, even in silence, it feels like we're both aware of the same thing. This isn't accidental anymore. It never was. That evening, the house feels different in a way I can't immediately explain. It's quieter than usual, but not the comforting kind of quiet. More like the kind that stretches time out longer than it should, making every small sound feel noticeable. A door closing somewhere deeper in the house. The faint hum of a fan. The soft shift of fabric when someone moves. And then, there's the absence. My friend isn't home. That changes everything. It shouldn't. It's just a normal detail. But suddenly, the space feels wider, like the rooms have more room to echo thoughts I haven't said out loud yet. I find myself sitting in the living room again. Same place as before. Same couch. But this time, there's no distraction of background movement or casual interruptions. Just me. And her. She enters after a few minutes, not hurried, not announcing herself. As always, she moves like she belongs exactly where she is. But today, there's something more focused in her presence. She doesn't sit immediately. She stands for a moment near the doorway, looking at me in a way that doesn't feel casual anymore. Not observing from a distance, closer than that. Like she's stepping into a conversation that hasn't officially started yet. Then she walks over and sits. Not far. Not too close. But close enough that I notice the space between us feels intentional again. The silence begins almost instantly. But this time, it doesn't feel like something waiting to break. It feels like something already holding itself together carefully. She leans back slightly, crossing her hands loosely in her lap. Her posture is relaxed, but her attention isn't. Her eyes stay on me longer than they should for something that is supposed to be normal conversation. Then she speaks. You think I don't notice, but I do. Her voice is calm. almost gentle. But there's no softness in the meaning. It lands directly, cleanly, without hesitation. I feel my chest tighten, not out of fear exactly, but out of recognition. Because the worst part isn't being accused. It's being understood without permission. I try to respond. I really do. But nothing comes out properly. So I do what I've been doing lately. I stay quiet, hoping silence will protect me from whatever direction this is heading. But silence doesn't help this time. Because she doesn't move away from the moment. Instead, she watches me more carefully now. Not intensely, not aggressively, just with the patience of someone who already knows the answer and is waiting to see if I'll admit it. A faint shift happens in her expression. Not a smile, not quite that. More like recognition settling into place. Then she adds softly, almost as if she's talking to herself as much as to me, "You don't need to hide it like it's wrong." That line changes the air. Not because it fixes anything, but because it removes something, denial, distance, the illusion that nothing is being seen. For a moment, neither of us speaks. The room feels still, but not empty. It feels full of everything that hasn't been said yet. And I realize something I didn't expect. This isn't about being exposed. It's about being understood. And I don't know which one is more dangerous. After those words, something changes, but not in a loud or obvious way. There's no sudden shift in tone. No dramatic reaction. No immediate step back. Instead, what happens is quieter, and far more intense. The conversation doesn't end. It just loses its structure. Words become less important after a point. What remains is presence. Awareness. The space between speaking and not speaking starts to feel heavier than anything actually said. She doesn't push further. That's what makes it feel even more powerful. She simply stays. Sitting beside me, calm as ever, as if she hasn't just said something that stripped away every layer of pretending I had left. Her posture relaxes slightly, one arm resting along the back of the couch. Not touching me, but close enough that I'm constantly aware of where she is without looking. The silence stretches again, but this time it's different. It isn't awkward. It isn't uncertain. It's loaded with understanding that neither of us is fully ready to shape into words. At some point, her gaze softens, not in pity, not in superiority, but in something quieter. Something almost human in its honesty. And then she shifts slightly. Not a big movement. Just enough for the distance between us to change by a few centimeters. But those centimeters feel like they matter. Her hand rests on the armrest between us. At first, it's just there. Still. Neutral. Nothing unusual. But it's close enough that I notice how natural it looks there, like it was always meant to be in that space. A moment passes. Then another. Neither of us acknowledges it. And then, a small, accidental brush. Her fingers and mine meet for less than a second. It's not deliberate enough to be called intentional. But not accidental enough to be ignored. The contact is light. Barely there. But it sends a sharp awareness through me that I don't react to outwardly. Inside, though, everything pauses for a fraction of a second. She doesn't pull away immediately. Neither do I. That hesitation, small, silent, shared, becomes its own language. Her expression doesn't change dramatically, but something in her eyes does. A slight softening, like she's acknowledging something unspoken without giving it a name. And in that moment, it feels like a line has been crossed without anyone deciding to cross it. She finally speaks again, her voice lower now, steadier. You don't have to keep fighting what you already feel. There's no pressure in her tone. No demand. Just an observation spoken with calm certainty. I don't answer. Not because I don't want to, but because I don't know how to respond to something that feels this direct without being aggressive. The air between us feels closer now, even though nothing physical has changed. It's not about proximity anymore. It's about awareness. About how every small movement now feels meaningful. She shifts slightly again, this time a bit more openly turning toward me, her shoulder gently aligning closer to mine. Not pressing. Not forcing. Just existing in a way that makes distance feel optional rather than required. For the first time, I realize something unsettlingly clear: nothing she does is accidental anymore. Not her words. Not her timing. Not even her silence. And worse, I've stopped seeing it as something to escape from. Instead, I'm just sitting in it. Letting it exist. Between us. After that moment, the air between us doesn't return to normal. It settles into something heavier, something quieter, but far more real. We don't talk much after it. Not because there's nothing left to say, but because anything said now feels like it would change the shape of everything too quickly. So instead, we sit in that in-between space where understanding exists, but direction doesn't. She eventually breaks the silence first, but not in the way I expect. There's no continuation of what was already being said. No attempt to deepen the tension or explain it further. Instead, she shifts the energy completely. I think you should understand something, she says softly. Her voice is steady, but there's a subtle shift in it now, less playful awareness, more grounded seriousness. She adjusts slightly on the couch, creating a small distance that feels intentional rather than accidental. Not rejection. Not withdrawal. Just clarity forming its outline. Her hands rest calmly in her lap. Her gaze stays forward for a moment, as if she's organizing thoughts that can't be rushed. Then she looks at me again. This can't be rushed. The words are simple. Controlled. But they carry weight that settles slowly instead of hitting all at once. There's no emotional spike in her delivery. No dramatics. That's what makes it harder to dismiss. It feels like she's not reacting to the moment, but managing it. I notice something I didn't focus on before, the way her expression holds both warmth and restraint at the same time. Not confusion. Not regret. Awareness. Responsibility. Something carefully measured. A strand of hair falls slightly near her cheek, and she gently tucks it back behind her ear. A small, human gesture, one that breaks the composed image just enough to remind me she isn't distant from this either. That detail stays with me longer than her words. Because it shows something unspoken, she's not untouched by this either, but she's choosing how to carry it. The silence returns, but it feels different now. Less charged. More reflective. I realize I've been waiting for a direction, some kind of clarity, some signal that tells me what this is supposed to become. But she isn't giving that. Not because she doesn't know, but because she does. And she's choosing not to let it move faster than it should. Her eyes soften slightly again, but now it's not teasing or curiosity. It's understanding layered with caution. You're not wrong for feeling what you feel, she adds quietly after a pause. That line doesn't open a door. It sets a boundary beside it. And somehow, both things exist at the same time. I look at her properly now, not trying to interpret, not trying to guess. Just observing what's actually there. A person who is calm, composed, but not untouched by the situation either. There's a difference between control and absence of feeling. And she is not absent. She leans back slightly again, restoring a careful balance between us, not pushing away, not pulling closer. Just holding the moment in place. And I realize something uncomfortable but clear: whatever this is, it doesn't belong to urgency. It belongs to timing. To restraint. To something that exists only if it's allowed to exist slowly. And for the first time, I stopped trying to move it forward. Not because I've accepted everything, but because I've started to understand that not everything is meant to be rushed into being defined. The days after that conversation don't bring closure in the way stories usually promise. There's no final confession. No dramatic shift. No clear decision announced out loud. Instead, something more subtle happens. The tension doesn't disappear, it transforms. It becomes quieter, more stable, like it has finally found a shape it can live in without breaking everything around it. When I return to the house again, it doesn't feel like I'm stepping into uncertainty anymore. It feels like stepping into something that already understands its own limits. She is there, as always. But something about the way she looks at me has changed. Not distant. Not overly familiar. Balanced. Like both of us have learned how to exist in the same space without needing to test it every second. The first moment is simple. I enter the room, and she glances up from what she's doing. There's a pause, just a fraction of a second longer than normal eye contact. Then she smiles. Not the knowing smile from before. Not the teasing one either. This one is softer. More settled. Like a thought that has finally stopped moving in circles. She gestures lightly toward the couch without speaking, and I sit. This time, there's no hesitation in the silence that follows. It's not heavy anymore. It's comfortable in a way that feels earned rather than accidental. She sits beside me after a moment, leaving a respectful distance, but not the kind that feels like avoidance. More like awareness of boundaries that have been understood rather than imposed. The room feels warm in a quiet, natural way. Light from outside shifts across the walls slowly, like time itself has decided not to rush either. Neither of us speaks immediately. And strangely, it doesn't feel like something is missing. It feels complete in its stillness. At some point, she leans back slightly, letting her shoulder gently align closer to mine, not fully touching, but close enough that the presence is felt without needing confirmation. It's subtle. But it's different from before. There's no testing in it anymore. No searching. Just acceptance of proximity that has already been emotionally agreed upon without words. Her head tilts slightly for a moment, as if she's letting the weight of the day settle somewhere outside of her. Then she exhales softly. Not tired. Just at ease. I notice how natural everything feels now. Not forced. Not uncertain. Just present. After a while, her hand rests lightly on the armrest again, and this time I don't overthink it. I don't search for meaning in every movement anymore. It just exists. And that's enough. She glances at me briefly, and there's a quiet understanding in her expression, something that doesn't need explanation anymore. Whatever crossed between us earlier has not grown into something chaotic or unstable. Instead, it has stabilized into something quieter. Something restrained. Something real in its own way, even if it doesn't fit into simple definitions. She speaks eventually, her voice low and calm. Some things don't need to be said all the time, she says gently. I nod slightly, because I understand what she means now. Not everything requires continuation. Not everything requires urgency. Some things are allowed to exist simply as awareness between two people who understand the weight of what they feel, but choose not to let it break the world around them. As the light outside begins to fade, the room grows softer, warmer. And in that quiet ending of the day, there is no confusion left between us. Only a shared understanding that doesn't need to be named. She leans slightly closer, not into anything dramatic, not into anything final. Just enough that the silence feels shared instead of separate. And for the first time, I realize, this isn't a story that needed a loud ending. It became one that lives in calm, because calm is the only place it could truly exist.